Sitting here with Mr. Doug Williams, executive producer and host of Martin Lawrence Presents First Amendment. Doug, how you doing?
I'm great, man. Finally, Humor Meal. I finally get to do Humor Meal. Been waiting for this day for the longest time.
I know we're 4 years late because you've been doing it for 4 years. Well, let's get started. First question I want to ask you is, how did the thought process come about of you doing Martin Lawrence Presents First Amendment? Was it First Amendment before Martin Lawrence, or how did all that come about?
Yeah, actually, we did a season without Martin. The first season we shot in Atlanta, shoestring budget. We went in, we met with stars. I have some partners. We sat down, we met with stars. They were looking for original programming, and we pitched them a comedy show, which at the time was the cheapest and easiest thing to get on the air. And at the time, stars wanted to be, for lack of a better term, like the HBO. They were looking for something to jumpstart them and kind of move them in the direction of original programming. And now, I mean, they have about 6 shows, but the First Amendment was the first show, so we led the way to open up original programming for stars.
Well, after the first season, how was it without Martin Lawrence, after the end of the first season?
It was great. It did really well the first season. I reached out to Martin to bring Martin aboard because at the time, going into the second season, Def Jam had resurfaced, the reunion, Bad Boys, P. Diddy's Bad Boys was on his way out, Comic View was coming back. So I felt like in order to compete with those shows, especially since we were on such a small network, we needed to bring a name in to bring more attention to the show, and that's how Martin came about.
Right.
He wanted to come in, he liked the product, and I think he was happy with what we did the first season.
Well, now 4 years later, you're the longest running stand-up comedy show on TV. What have your experiences been in the last 4 or 5 years we've been doing the show?
It's been great. You know, it's been a training ground for me. A lot of people don't realize that I had so many jobs on that show. Not only was I hosting, but I was executive producing. So I would host, and then once I would come off stage while another comedian was performing, if the lights went out, if there was a technical problem, I would have to deal with that, and then literally run back up on stage. So I was really torn in a lot of directions, trying to make sure my material was good enough, trying to make sure all the technical aspects were okay. So it was very challenging to be able to do that. Man, my hat goes off to people like Tyler Perry, who can do so many jobs and do them efficiently.
Right. Well, an executive producer of a comedy show and hosting at the same time is not, not common. So, what did you take away by executive producing this show?
I learned a lot as an executive producer. And a lot of people don't know what goes into being an executive producer. But it's a big responsibility because a lot falls on your shoulder. Making sure people are on time. And with this show, it's really we didn't have a big staff. It was short staff. So a lot of people took on a lot of different jobs, man. I had like about 5 different jobs, and on top of that, we didn't have the money to pay a writing staff. So I would only have like a friend of mine, Buddy Lewis, who's a great stand-up comedian, and Dale Brunson. So I had just like friends who would come aboard and help. And trying to make sure I had the right material, trying to make sure everything behind the scenes flowed was very challenging. And this year, we had a new host, Cheryl Underwood, came in as host. So my responsibilities, it was kind of like a load off of my shoulders in a sense, because I could concentrate on one thing more. And so this year was less stressful for me.
Well, let's talk about that. After the end of last season, was one of your most successful seasons. As executive producer of this upcoming season, what was the decision to go behind and say, you know what, I don't want to host anymore. I want Cheryl Underwood to host now. Can you explain about that?
Well, actually, this year, the show was being pulled in a lot of different directions. Everybody had an opinion about what they wanted for the show and how they wanted to move forward. Now, in all honesty, I wasn't exactly keen on changing the role of giving up the role as host, because this is my baby. I built this from the ground up, and to just turn over the keys to just anybody, that's a difficult decision, because I want to see the show grow and keep being successful. So once we made the decision to go with Cheryl, I felt a lot better, because there were a lot of other people we were considering. But Cheryl, I knew was a veteran. I thought it would be a good idea to bring a female if we were going to go in a different direction. I think Martin was happy with Cheryl. So, and she was a great host. So I wasn't on board at first, but then when we locked in Cheryl, I was a little bit more secure, and she did a fabulous job, and we really worked together real well.
Well, you were talking about the politics that's going behind the show and everything else. Are you happy with the end result of what is about to be broadcast on the air this upcoming season?
Very happy. I think this is going to be one of the best seasons that we've ever done. There was a lot of disarray leading up to Chicago with the decision making, and that's common. When you have a bunch of people who are passionate about a product, then you're going to have differences or what have you. But by the time we got to Chicago, we were all on the same page. Martin, Stars, and you know, I want to commend Stars because they didn't have to pick this show up for another season. They've had a shift change. Chris Albrecht is now running Stars or what have you, but he came in, he liked the show, and Stars has been so supportive of this show, and it's the longest running show, so I owe them a huge amount of gratitude because I was a new executive producer. You know, a lot of this stuff, they were very patient, and now I think we've settled in, and Stars is just, they're a great network for a show like this, and you're going to be seeing a lot out of Stars in the up and coming future.
Well, now the journey of being a comic and executive producer, as being Mr. Doug Williams, a comic, you've gone through being comic for years. Now, the journey going forward now will consist of what?
So I have some other television projects that I'm working on and I'm very excited about. I've partnered up with NWE Entertainment and DNA Media Productions. We have a shoot that we're about to do that's right now being titled Running the Streets with Doug Williams. So it's going to be all over the place. I'm going to be interviewing people, doing sketches. I'm excited about that. And just looking forward, man, to putting out quality television products.
Well, in closing, can you tell us, you know, where we can find out all the details? Because obviously we want to know what's going on now because you're getting ready to change shifts. Can you tell us where we can find out? You have a Facebook or my?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, Doug Williams fan page, Mr. Doug Williams on Twitter. My production company is DNA Media Productions. That's D as in dog, N as in Nancy, A as in Apple, Media. Is that Productions with an S or without an S? Production with no S. You know, I have my wife on set to keep me geared or what have you. And also check out my website, DougWilliams.net. And you know, I really want to thank you, man. I've been a big fan of the Human Meal. And it's always great. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for taking out the time. Appreciate it.